signature moment to thrust himself to the head of the MVP conversation. But that was nothing compared to this game. I mean, he did everything humanly possible on both ends of the floor that a guy needs to say, I'm the MVP of this league. And I don't think it's close right now, Scott, based on the fact that the Sixers are number one in the East. And I can't imagine what this team would look like without what Joel Embiid has become.
Straight Talk Wireless, no contract, no compromise. He makes a compelling case, but it's really hard to get off the Harden train after last night either.
Well, look, I'm still on the James Harden train. I mean, they're up a game on the Brooklyn Nets to a degree. I still have James Harden number one, Joel Embiid number two, LeBron James number three. Like I said, this is fluid. Joel was a beast last night. And I'm starting to ask myself this question. I've seen Hakeem Olajuwon play. I've never seen a big with the size and with the dexterity and the footwork and the skill that Joel Embiid brings to the table. He might be the most skilled big with that size that the game has ever seen. And the way he played last night, I mean, they had key critical buckets down the stretch where the ball just kept coming back to him. He actually made a step back three to send the game into overtime before Tobias Harris kind of took over overtime and they won that game. The game has never seen a physical force combined with that skill work like Joel Embiid has.
Yeah, I mean, he's right. Okay, so when you say that, to me, the first thing comes to mind is the dream, right?
Yep, that's what I said. Hakeem, yep.
Then because I'm a little bit older, I got Kevin McHale in my brain.
Okay.
And then as I move forward, Tim Duncan. So
Tim Duncan was so fundamentally sound. I think what makes Joel so scary is like Joel moves kind of like a guard, man. He hits people with Euro steps in transition, right?
Spin moves, all that, and he's already at the cup because he's long and his body is somewhat wide, so you can't get around him.
That Shaq-like frame to a degree, right? But combined with the footwork, that's the thing that's scary about it.
When he puts the ball on the floor, he could get to the cup quick. I mean, most big guys, when they put the ball on the floor, as you know, Jay, it takes them a minute to get there. They get there with their length, but not with their speed.
I mean, he's turning, he's like reverse pivoting, turning, facing you, shooting a jumper in your face, putting the ball down the ground, passing out of double teams, seeing things before it comes. And here's what's the difference maker for him, Key. We've always talked, it's not about, hey, his endurance and, will he get hurt? It's always been a question of his mindset and his conditioning.
But what happened to, like, when he had the back injury? Was it just because of, because back injury is usually because you're out of shape?
Well, I think a lot of it, most of the time was because he's been out of shape. And that's been a knock on Brett Brown at the time because Brett couldn't really push him.
I was about to ask you that. Do you give, I don't want to call it rebirth or whatever it is, but do you give whatever it is credit to the staff now?
Doc Rivers, Daryl Morey. Lot of credit. Glenn Rivers, excuse me. You're right. We have to refer to him as Glenn. Yes. And I'll also say this. I think there's always been these questions looming around this team. Whose team is it? Which one would you rather have, Ben Simmons or Joel Embiid? Well, look, when Ben Simmons' name and the articles came out that Daryl Morey made a huge push for James Harden, Zubin, and that Ben Simmons was one of the names involved in that, this is Joel Embiid's team. It's his team.
But you also raise a great point in that they challenged Simmons and he didn't cower.
Exactly.
They challenged Simmons and says, we're going to get you out of here and bring James Harden in. He responded with the best basketball of his career. That's notable. The one other thing I would say about Embiid is that unlike McHale and the Dream, and I can't put him in company with the Dream just yet, the game was way different in the 80s with McHale and 90s with Olajuwon.
Why not?
Well, I
just from optics, from looking at
it. He's just talking about
skill-wise.
But I do think the one thing he does have that those guys didn't need, right? He's the more well-rounded player. Nobody's asking McHale to ever go out of the paint or asking Olajuwon to not have his great footwork in the paint. But Embiid does seem to have the complete package.
And he has Shaq's sides. That's the problem, Zubin. Shaq's sides while doing that.
Last thing I would tell you, Jazz have now actually gone 3-4 in their last 7 games, so maybe they're starting to teeter just a little bit. And if you're trying to get back on board with the NBA, just something that Jay mentioned that should not be overlooked. Tobias Harris had 11 points in overtime yesterday. If you're looking for great regular season closing basketball, 11 of his 22, half of his points in OT. More NBA conversation on the way this morning. On the way, they're ready to roll out the welcome mat for the moving company, for Nagy, to get him out of Chicago.
Chi-town.
But I've got some numbers that essentially say maybe the next thing they should do with Matt is give him a contract extension.
What?
Hear me out. That's on the way, and a very interesting NFL poll question this morning for you as well. After Key has this, backing up the moving trucks from Indeed.
As a business owner, time is your most valuable
By Progressive Insurance. You heard those 3 letters on the way in. Key referencing the sun coming up here in New York. Some MVP conversation coming up as well. 10 games in the NBA last night, fellas. We'll get into it in just a second. Want to find out what you did last night because you could have watched Harden in the triumphant return to Houston. Key, you could have watched your Lakers shorthanded without AD and LeBron take on the Sacramento Kings, or you could have ended up watching the game of the night, which we'll get to in just 1 second. What'd you think?
You know why I looked at Jay like that?
Why is that?
Because I didn't do either, really. You know what I did?
Option D. What did you do?
I watched the Dodgers spring training.
Oh, that's right. You did watch it.
When I saw that text, I said, "You really watching spring training right now?"
A little bit of it. I wanted to see Galvin Lux. I wanted to see Justin Turner. I just wanted to kind of just see my guys. I watched a little bit of it, but I did watch the Rockets game. But I was zooming in. It kind of, checking out spring training a little bit of Dodgers. I just wanted to see what the big blue wrecking crew was doing.
Never too early for a title defense. So let's roll. It's time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless.
Spring training.
Only you. Only you.
We should
I was
take you
one of
inside.
5 people probably.
You were called out, right? Because on the text chain, it was like, he ain't watching spring training. And then you had to give the visual proof recording the game off the TV to say that was indeed the case. I'm sure on the TV last night, Jay, you were locked in to your Nets. Big one last night on ESPN coming back to Houston was James Harden. Your thoughts on that? And then, like I said, if you're just waking up this morning, there's a huge NBA story not a lot of people are talking about.
Yeah.
We'll get into it. We didn't think about it going into the night because everybody was focused on Harden. What do you make of the return? The Nets have hit the All-Star break on fire.
I mean, spread and love is the Brooklyn way, right? I mean, that's what James Harden is doing right now. I mean, 29 points, 14 assists, 10 rebounds. I think he put it on the show last night for Houston. Initially, there were a lot of boos mixed with some applause. I think when they had the tribute video for him, when he came out and he kind of put his hand over his heart, I think you heard more applauds than boos. Mm-hmm. But look, like he said yesterday, I think whenever you get booed, that's a sign of respect. And at the end of the day, he was very graceful in the way he said, "Hey, I thank Tillman Fertitta for stating out that they're going to retire my number." But I mean, look, you expected Brooklyn to win. You expected James Harden to put on a performance. Every time I watch Houston play, I feel worse and worse for them. I mean, John Wall and Victor Oladipo had 30-plus points. But look, they lost their 13th straight. It's going to get tougher and tougher for Houston, and it continues to build that narrative about who wants to own Houston. Deshaun Watson, they got the Houston Rockets playing poorly. Just tough for them, but still, I think it was overall a great performance for James Harden last night. But he was not the performance of the evening. The performance of the evening went to the Philadelphia 76ers. Let's
talk about this. This is really incredible. They rallied deep last night to beat the NBA's best team record-wise. Sixers over the Jazz, 131-123. And here's why I want to say why you got to love this if you're the NBA. I know you fellas want Lakers Nets. It just makes total sense for the NBA Finals to get all those superstars on the floor at once. But, and I know the executives wants that. I know Adam Silver wants that. I know you two want that. But the worst thing in the world, just from a pure basketball standpoint, wouldn't be the Sixers and the Jazz. This is actually the second meeting of the season, and this is why I say you're going to love this. I know Key doesn't want it. Hear me out.
I'm hearing you out, but when you said Sixers Jazz, I'm like,
Hear me out. Hear me out. I know. Adam Silver is just, he wants Nets Lakers. Everybody wants Nets Lakers to see what the league can do here. But think about this, the second meeting between the Sixers and the Jazz. And the reason I said you'll love it is the first game actually came the day after Valentine's Day on February 15th, where I thought the best Sixers stat line of the season was put up by Ben Simmons. 42, 12, and 9. Mm-hmm. 42, 12, and 9 in a loss.
Zero threes.
How many jump shots? 0.
That doesn't matter, though. 42, 12, and 9.
I know,
damn.
but I'm like, the thing with him is like, how many, like you said, Zubin, how many jumpers?
Yeah.
But see, they actually have the right personnel on his team now where he doesn't feel the need to have to shoot jumpers.
Well, he never felt the need to.
Right.
No, he felt the need last year a little bit.
He does the one thing nobody else does. He plays some great defense.
Yes, he
so
does.
I like Ben Simmons. I was telling you, I like him.
Yeah.
So on that game on the 15th, Utah wins the game, but Ben Simmons goes for 42, 12, and 9. What's important to remember about that game is who didn't play. Joel Embiid had a back injury. He didn't play in that game.
Which is what you worry about with Joel Embiid, right?
Right, always injured. Joel showed up last night, a 40-point, 19-rebound game as the Sixers knock off the Jazz. The Jazz actually lose back-to-back games for the first time since January 5th and 6th. That's how good they had been playing. ESPN NBA analyst Tim Legler saying, you know what? This performance is so good because not too long ago, Joel Embiid scored a half 100 in a game, a half 100. And last night was better. He is your MVP frontrunner.
I thought the 50-point game against Toronto a week and a half ago,